soup. Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, this is Mary, and we got some RPG horror stories for today. Mary, have you ever heard of AITA, Am I the A-Hole?
Yeah.
There's a subreddit for Am I the A-Hole stories where people talk about and try to kind of describe the situation and see if the internet decides to judge them as the A-Hole or not. I'm thinking we should probably go there, find some D&D related stories, and see if people are really A-Holes or not. But the most important question, Mary, is am I the A-Hole?
Yeah.
Well, you have it. I guess I'm the a-hole, guys. Let's get some RPG horror stories for today. DM fries my first ever character in a TPK. Streams games without our consent. This is a long one. It's sort of a brain dump reflection on a situation that happened a while ago. This happened when I was in high school. Looking back, I can't believe I stayed in the game for as long as I did. However, I was young, nerdy, and desperate to try out this Dragons game I'd heard so much about. I also had a severe tendency for people please, even if I was uncomfortable in situations. Now, unfortunately, I've grown and can look back with perspective on how weird this was. I met a DM through school as we shared a lot of interest and were in a few classes and clubs together. I was either freshman or sophomore at the time, and he was in a grade above me. When he mentioned that he was into D&D and invited me to join the game he DM'd, I was super excited. I'd always wanted to play, but the closest I'd gotten before was researching the game on my own, watching and listening to a few popular actual plays online. Told him that I knew very little about the mechanics, but I was willing to learn. We had a preliminary call where we designed my first ever character in D&D 5e, a tiefling artificer. I remember him asking, "So what's your angle here? Like, little girl with a big sword sort of character?" I was confused, as I hadn't indicated that this was what I was been aiming for at all. I wanted this character to be a badass sharpshooter inventor with a mechanical mount. Regardless, after sorting out the details, I felt confident about session 1. It was an online game using voice call. Since it was an ongoing campaign, he just sort of threw my character into what the party was already up to, which was a war zone. There was some high concept magical war going on, where the party was a group of special forces invading the enemy's secure military base. First session was a blur. I wasn't oriented in all the context of what was supposed to be going. I tried to offer support where I could, but I felt like my character's presence had nothing to do with the story. I was also the only female player and felt constantly talked over by the party, who were all good friends already and at least several years older than I was. I thought it was really weird that the DM specifically ignore Mary, she just AFK. This is just her AFK pose and stuff. But it was a little bit weird for the DM to bring up like a little girl with a big gun kind of archetype. I mean, it's pretty popular in video games, like, you know, your character is, you know, tiny, chibi, like Mary, tiny little chibi, tiny little satyr with a big old bite. But it kind of makes sense why they probably went into the specific dynamic. Maybe those, I don't know, maybe when you were in high school, that was just like the big, like, anime trope, you know, like a tiny girl with like large gun kind of thing. I don't know, who knows, honestly. Throwing you into a combat where you don't have the context for anything and you weren't given like a proper orientation towards D&D since it's your first time ever is indeed a problem. They should have given you some sort of a tutorial session or something, some sort of warm-up, some sort of like a session 0 to kind of get you used to the mechanics and all that stuff, introduce you to the characters, the game, the campaign, talk about expectations and all that. That might have been a really good start so that when you enter in, you have a little bit of context for who is who as your characters meet and stuff. But in this situation, you're kind of thrown into the fire and you're sort of just expected to like survive and stuff, and people already have their own dynamics and everything. You can't really mesh in with them because you're kind of like an outsider. I mean, to be honest, you kind of are an outsider at this point. Anyway, let's continue. The weirdest part I remember about the first arc was this. Before the actual invasion plan kicked off, there was suddenly a bathing scene at our home base with the whole party present. We'd done very little roleplay at all before this point. I remember DM asking, "OP, do you get in?" while everyone waited for my response in awkward silence. I said no. My character was sitting aside and prepare her equipment for the upcoming battle. The whole scene was played for laughs, with the guys snickering the whole time. The vibes were generally very uncomfortable and bizarre. This was supposed to be a game about slaying dragons, and now we're doing an anime-esque bath scene. It literally felt like an in-game fan service, because it probably was. Some DMs take, ooh, I saw an anime, I want to take it to D&D a little bit too far. Listen, I get it. You watched Sentenced to be a Hero, and it's so cool and epic, and you love how the monsters are, and the whole vibe of you sentenced to be a hero fighting this eternal battle and all that, yada yada. Don't spoil it for me, I haven't watched the anime yet, only first episode, and I thought it was cool. But then they start bringing all the other fan servicey anime stuff into it, and that's when it gets a little bit awkward and weird. Listen, I'm not against fan service myself. In fact, I love me a stupidly dumb fan service mecha harem anime like any other tiefling out there would. In session 0, this could have been easily covered. I feel like if you got a general rundown what sort of game it is, and you were given a choice to decide whether you want to play in this or not, then would have been, you know, there would be no RPG horror story there. Because if you're cool with it, you're cool with it. If you're not cool with it, then it's not for me, I'm gonna go ahead and bow out. But in this situation, you sort of kind of put into a bit of an awkward situation of like, yeah, I want to play D&D, Dungeons, Dragons, cool. You joining in, there are no dungeons, no dragons, it's just anime girls and bathhouses. Welcome back, Mary. We talk about anime girls and bathhouses.
Not. That doesn't surprise me.
Listen, you can have an anime-themed or anime-based D&D game with like different anime tropes, so like playing in a specific anime universe, you're more than welcome to. Just let the players know exactly what they're getting themselves into. If there's gonna be a bathhouse and fan service and like flashing censoring bits and stuff, you know, like they do in modern-day anime, then sure, whatever. Just let people know exactly what they're signing up for before they can join in for it, you know? Anyway, let's continue. Once we got to the actual invasion plan, my character ended up being nominated to stealth ahead into the enemy's base camp as part of our large plan. As I rolled for stealth and started to scout, an armored general appeared out of nowhere on a dragon mount and torched my character to death in a single round. No opportunity for healing or nothing. She just got fried to a crisp. I barely got used to any of her abilities and she was perma-dead. Over the rest of the session, which I had to just sit and watch, the rest of the party also fell one by one, and it was extremely sudden TPK. DM sort of apologized for the fluke, saying that his games tended to be very intense and high stakes, we needed to be on high alert. He allowed us to continue the same plot, but this time our party would be on the opposite side of the conflict. Okay. You can say your games are very intense and high stakes and you guys need to be on high alert if the player gets no opportunity to use a reaction, healing, or anything specific to respond to the giant dragon torching them alive. Like, you can't call that as like, sorry guys, you gotta be so quick in the draw in my campaign, when players don't even get a chance for it whatsoever. What happened to death saving throws? What did death saving throws go? Listen, I don't care if you pull out like a giant insane dragon to torch me alive and stuff. Give me a death saving throw at least. Let somebody else try to save me. Let somebody else try to recover me. Give me a fighting chance, DM. Like, seriously, what the heck? Then ask me why I stayed after the first arc. I guess I was caught in the euphoria of having a group to play with, and determined to have fun regardless. I thought that maybe I was just playing a game wrong, or hadn't been careful enough to avoid being taken out by the dragon. Despite the TPK ending of the session, I do have to say that my mission has been pretty suspenseful and exciting. Plus, I still wanted to see what all the hype was about. Surely D&D could be better than this, right? I was in that situation as well. And I know as much as we say, like, no D&D is better than bad D&D. Like, I fully agree with that motto, fully agree. But when you're a new player, you're joining in a game, and you put trust into the person to teach you about the game because you're just excited that you're like, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed player. You just want to have fun, learn something new, learn how to play something that's like just sounds exciting to you, or play something with friends and stuff. The people you surround with when you first start really make a difference. They really make a difference. When I started realizing that I was kind of guided wrong and wasn't really told things proper like how I should have been, and I started accepting problem play behavior as a normal D&D thing before realizing it's problem play behavior, I was just clueless. I had no idea. When I thought, oh, this player can play as two characters and swap between a wizard PC and a paladin PC on a whim to become an angel. I think it's just normal D&D. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. This enemy is completely immune to all the magic that I'm doing. I must be not playing the game correctly. I need to learn how to play the game better and stuff. When you start seeing the problem player and problem DM stuff going on, especially when DMs allow some crazy stuff just to happen because they're playing favorites or something, or they're just being very antagonistic and an a-hole of a DM that doesn't want you to succeed, then the cracks break, and that's when you can start realizing, hey, wait a minute, it's not me, it's the DM or the other player or whatever's going on that is being ignored at the table. real. And I had no idea that was going to be a problem whatsoever. I thought this was just a normal part of D&D until I started realizing, wait a minute, no it's not. This is problem behavior, and recognizing that is honestly very important. When you're first new and stuff, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. So like, I remember when convincing Mary to try D&D, I wanted her to have the best of time. That's why I made sure that a bunch of our friends were invited too, so they could all start together and do sessions together and do stuff together. And I want to make sure that I can run for them when I was still learning how to DM and stuff, that I want to run good sessions, fun sessions, where they could really do some of the silliest of stuff and truly see what D&D is all about. I remember one of the first sessions when Mary first started playing D&D and stuff, I was DMing it. She decided, hey, out of the satyr ability that lets me jump up, can I try to like Goomba stomp a dude with my hooves and stuff? I was like, sure, why not? Because D&D should be about trying to do some of the silly stuff and cool stuff and having a fun time with it, whether you're role playing or in combat and whatever. I don't know. For me personally, whenever I give somebody a new player the first time DMing like experience, I want to make sure that it's the best possible, and I want to make sure that I got it properly, because I kind of went through a little bit of problem here and there, so I just don't want other people to go through problems, right? D&D is supposed to be fun, and if, let's say for example, you're surrounded by a bunch of people that don't make it fun, then obviously it ruins the hobby and stuff and just turns people away from it. And last thing I want to do is to have people turn away from it completely whatsoever in the slightest. Which the problem is going on here is that the PC doesn't know what's going on, the OP don't know what's going on here, but they just think, oh, this is just regular D&D. And boy, are they gonna find out in a moment that this is not indeed regular D&D. In the next arc, our party was a group of high-level mercenaries who were infiltrating a magic school where the enemy was supposedly training dangerous spellcasters for their cause. Logic the party decided on was just to burn the school, torturing the students within just of learning magic on the wrong side of the war. I get that sometimes games are built around player evil or morally corrupt characters to make for an interesting story. However, this didn't feel good at all. Felt like extreme murder hobo play mixed with the worst kind of power fantasy. Being such a new player though, I didn't know what to do but to go along with the party's plan. I didn't have the will or tools to push back. So my high-dex tabaxi fighter spent his time smashing oil lamps to add to the blaze while his party members stormed the other floors. This earned the approval of my group, who applauded my destructive tactics. Around the time is when I started to lose hope for the game would change for the better, as it seemed to devolve into endless combat slog for the bloody cause that neither I nor my newly rolled character were given a reason to believe in. Out of game, I was pretty decent friends with the DM. One day, he casually mentioned that he likes to stream out games on Twitch, had been doing so for a while. This completely caught me off guard. What I thought had been private casual gaming sessions were being broadcasted weekly to his audience. This icked me out enough that I finally said that I wasn't comfortable continuing the game. We still saw each other constantly due to our school schedules, but eventually we drifted apart for other reasons. When I was talking about my college plans, he sent me a paragraph-long tirade about why women and gender studies were a complete waste of time that contributed nothing to society, and why I shouldn't be a feminist. Not that it matters, but I wasn't even planning to major in WGST. That was one of the red flags that made me cut him off entirely and really recontextualize the weirdness of our past D&D games for me. This guy's tirade, I can smell the incel sweat from that. I can smell the incredibly potent, pustulant sweat particles coming off the writing that they wrote. They just immediately jumped to that conclusion because I guess, oh, you're a woman, and of course you go into gender studies because of course you would. Because apparently women can only go into gender studies and stuff, and that's it, apparently.
It's just another one of those guys who's just, I don't know. Maybe they had a thing for the girl, maybe, and because they left the...
Well, they had a thing for the girl, they have awful riz, Jesus Christ.
Well, there's a lot of guys out there and girls, like, honest, like, it can happen to anyone, but they'll be, like, really sweet at the start, and then the moment they get turned on, they'll do, like, a complete, like, 180, and they'll start, like, calling you all sorts, saying all that. I've witnessed it multiple times, and it's like, maybe he wanted to make himself feel better by bringing her down, because, like, she doesn't talk to him or hang out with him anymore. I don't know.
That is insane. That is crazy. Maybe, potentially. I mean, honestly, with this guy sending tirades and stuff, maybe the guy just off his rocker. But with the fact that he wrote all that specifically, saying that, like, just thinking that you apparently are a feminist and you go into gender studies just because you're going to college and probably didn't even describe exactly what you were, like, majoring into. I probably just assumed that you were just that. It just sounds like complete, like, sweat lord incel kind of behavior. It seems really cringe, really odd, and it smells of sweat. And honestly, I hope you don't talk to this guy ever again and just don't interact with this guy whatsoever. He sounds like a very unhinged kind of individual. Probably got lost in like a YouTube rabbit hole or something. I don't know, honestly. Do I care? Not really, not that much. He sounds very unpleasant as a DM and also sounds unpleasant as an individual as well. Also, completely unrelated to this, but like if you're gonna be streaming a game, don't be a dickhead and just don't tell anybody. Let people know if you're gonna be streaming this kind of stuff or recording this kind of stuff. Anytime I ask my players and stuff if it's cool that I record our Final Fantasy D&D sessions or any other D&D sessions where I'm playing as Morrow, I always check no matter what, even though I know the answer is always yeah, sure, because people don't mind. People that I do stuff with, they know what I do outside of Tales Tomorrow. They know that I make stuff and always have OBS basically running on half the time for everything, because part of what I do outside of Morrow, and I guess on Morrow too, I have OBS on. That's why we're recording this right now through OBS. They know that I make stuff outside of just playing D&D and everything, but at the end of the day, it's still a polite thing to ask if it's cool to do, because otherwise it just come off like an a-hole. What if it's, for example, it's just one of those like private games where people just want to unwind and relax and not perform for an imaginary audience or some audience of strangers out there, because sometimes people just want to just play like a cruddy little crappy character without having to have eyes on them the whole time, and that's okay. You're entitled to just enjoying playing as a character without needing to have somebody eyeballing you all the time, and that's perfectly well and good. There's nothing wrong with that. For this guy not to mention the fact that he's been streaming the games to some random audience out there is very scummy. You probably shouldn't play with this guy whatsoever, because if he is not saying about this, what else is he not mentioning about, you know? If he's not going to mention about something as innocuous as streaming their games on twitch.tv or whatever, what else is he not mentioning?
I love twitch.tv.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just what I'm used to saying. I'm sorry, I went to the autopilot there. What I'm trying to say is this guy sounds unhinged and sounds like somebody that I wouldn't want to associate with. If I was in a game with somebody like that, I mean, preferably I would have left by now, but if I was forced to be in a game with somebody, this would have been like a line, a straw that breaks the camel's back. Actually, even before that, the TPK would have been the straw that broke the camel's back, but still, it's just really scummy. Like, if you're gonna be capturing game for content or streaming for your TikToks or whatever the hell, I don't care. Let people know that you're gonna do this beforehand, you know?
Like, don't be like, oh my god, what is that above me? Is that White Wolf Meg twitch.tv? Oh my god, it just flies on by.
Mary, are you trying to cross-promote your stuff on my YouTube channel?
No, you
I'm
can
doing
remove that.
RPG horror stories. No, I'm gonna put that in to embarrass you. I'm gonna put that in, and that text is gonna stay on screen to embarrass you. So everybody could go over to your twitch.tv/WhiteWolfMeg and embarrass Mary.
Move it away.
No, it's staying there. It's permanent. Permanent tattooed to the back of this thing. I'm thankful that I eventually moved on from this group and matured into a much more self-assured person and player. I'm also thankful that the experience didn't drive me away from the hobby entirely. I DM my own games now with a group of good friends, and always take extra steps to make sure everyone at my table is comfortable with the atmosphere and content before we roll any dice. Consent is important in all areas of life, TTRPGs included. I truly love my group and adventures we've shared. Back then I thought, it has to be better than this, and it turns out I was right. Whenever felt uncertain as a DM or worried about including my players enough, I just think, do the opposite of whatever the guy was doing, and it works every time. Never settle for bad D&D. If you don't feel comfortable, never be afraid to just walk away. You know what? I'm gonna give you an applause. I'm gonna give you a clap. Kind of clapping my controls together, but I'm gonna give you a clap. OP, I'm super happy for you. One of the best things about having like a player learn from a really crappy DM about what not to do, I think it's like a perfect lesson. Yeah, it sucks you had to go through that. It sucks that you had to deal with this group and everything, and this DM being as they are. But now that you are DMing, you got this perfect lesson of, hey, what I do in this situation, not what that guy did. Perfect, then you'll be just fine. I think as long as you're trying to put a good, fun game for people and you considering other players at the table, because, at the end of the day, we're all players at the table, whether you're playing as a DM or players, we all are playing together. And as long as you consider other people at the table and make sure they're having good time and they can have fun too, then I think it's all gonna work out just fine. Honestly, I support you, OP. Wish you good luck with all the games, and I'm glad that you came out through for the better for this. Anything?
You go, girl.
And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.